Thomas is a tank engine who lives at a big station on the island of Sodor. He's a cheeky little engine with 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. And he's for sale. Now you may recall that a little over a week ago I released a video talking about the 80th anniversary of Thomas and Friends. And I said that what I considered to be a big part of the appeal of the TV series was the fact that it used live-action models. Well, I was contacted on behalf of the prop store and Mattel to ask if I'd be interested in partnering with them on a video about an auction of some of those live-action models. Absolutely I would. And this is that video. I didn't get there on the Northwestern Railway, but I did use the Metropolitan line, which is sort of a Northwestern Railway if you think about it. Then it was a long walk through the woods before I arrived at the prop store, and I was shown this room here. Now, when I was a kid, the models used in Thomas and Friends were just the most amazing things I'd ever seen. They created this kind of immersive world. Yes, the animation was limited. The faces didn't move apart from the eyes. The people didn't move. But because of the quality of the production, our imaginations could fill those gaps in. And if you think that seeing the models outside of the context of the screen would destroy the magic, let me tell you, it absolutely did not. If anything, it made me appreciate the craftsmanship that went into even background props. If you follow my Instagram, you'll know that I'm into model railways myself. Here are some of my own efforts. And seeing the amount of skill that went into these buildings honestly has me in awe. I think I was even more interested in the buildings than the actual characters. I mean, look at all this architectural detail. These station buildings are clearly inspired by the Southern Railway. Compare this station sign with this real-life example. And that signal box is obviously based on a London and South Western Railway box. I mean, this is a series aimed at preschool children. They absolutely did not have to go to all this trouble. But of course, what everyone's no doubt curious about is the characters, and there are plenty of those here. Many a train enthusiast got their start watching Thomas, and I think a lot of that is because the engines were always based on real-life locomotives. Take Arthur here. He's based on a London, Midland and Scottish Railway 2MT, specifically this one on the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway. This model is being auctioned off along with a bunch of face masks, as are many of the others. The faces are obviously important to the characters, partly because without them they'd look like this, but also because they're so expressive. Thomas is hugely popular with kids on the autistic spectrum, and one of the reasons for that is that the faces are easy to understand. They're also very appealing to babies who are always fascinated by faces in general. This engine here is Hank, who only appeared in one episode, so that's a lot of effort for the model makers to go to for a single appearance. At the other end of the scale is Fergus, based on the Aveling and Porter locomotive Blue Circle. This character's history in the TV series was quite brief. His mechanism was damaged during the filming of an accident scene, so the character never appeared again after that. Hence the fact that the prop looks rather beaten up here. That's provenance, that is. Am I using that word right? Here's Rocky the Crane, and what I really love about this model is that you see in close-up how intricate the weathering is. It's all been done by hand. You don't notice it so much on screen necessarily, at least not consciously, but it adds so much to the realism. Now the engines I've shown you so far have been to a scale known as Gauge 1, or in production terms, standard gauge scale. But the series uses several scales. From the 4th series onwards, smaller, narrow-gauge characters were introduced, and it was difficult to fit all the mechanical gubbins into them. So in the 5th season, larger-scale versions of the narrow-gauge engines were built. This is Mighty Mac. I forget which one's Mighty and which one's Mac, but they're based on a Festiniog Railway double fairley locomotive. Any standard gauge character who interacted with the narrow-gauge engines had to be replicated in that larger scale. This version of Elizabeth the Vintage Lorry here was built for that purpose. But there was a larger scale still, known as the Pack scale. While the 6th series was in production, there were plans afoot for a spin-off series known as either Jack and the Pack or the not entirely catchy title of Jack and the Sodor Construction Company. This would have revolved around construction vehicles, so in order to get these machines to do everything the real ones could do, they were built larger again. What I like on these is the face sculpts. They are a little bit more detailed and more realistic than the Gauge 1 or narrow gauge locomotives. Oh, but I could show you bigger. See, human characters were also sculpted in multiple scales. For close-ups, even larger scale figurines were built, like the Fat Controller and Lady Hat here. Of course, if you have large-scale figurines, sooner or later they're going to have to interact with the engines. And that brings me to the largest models of all, the close-up engines. Some of these only exist in part, like Skarloey here. Arthur gets an entire body minus a chassis. And Gordon, being one of the main characters, and my favourite when I was a wee lad, gets almost a complete engine. There's controls in the cab and everything. But as you might imagine, the most complete large-scale model is the literal centrepiece of the display, the main man, the #1 engine, Thomas the Tank Engine himself. This thing is absolutely enormous. I mean, it's got everything. It can be partially disassembled so you can see inside and just look at this cab. Even the floor, which you hardly ever see, is fully detailed. In awe at the size of this lad, absolute motive power unit. I've only really shown you part of what was on display, and that, in turn, is only part of what's for sale. But I hope I've conveyed how I felt at coming face to Smokebox with some of my favourite childhood characters. I feel like there's a lesson to be learned from all this. Here we go, let me pull out my soapbox. When Britt Allcroft set out to bring the Railway series books to the screen, the decision to use live-action models was basically a way of making the most of limited time and financial resources. But thanks to the dedication of director David Mitten and his team of model makers, the result was a series that, against all the odds, became a fixture at the forefront of popular culture. I think sometimes when we look to create something, we get bogged down in what we can't do. Instead, we should look at what we can do, and seek to do the best we can. I mean, that's not as punchy a catchphrase as really useful engine, but I'm on a time crunch here. If you'd like to own a piece of TV history, Mattel will be donating all net proceeds of the auction to the National Autistic Society, which is the UK's leading charity for providing support, advice and guidance for autistic people and their families. Or to put it simply, it's all in a good cause. As well as props and models, there's a vast array of memorabilia to suit a wide variety of pockets. You can bid online at propstore.com, and I'll put a link in the description below. The auction is running until the 28th of May 2025 online, and I've released this video a day early to give you a bit more time to get your own bid in. This is all part of the 80th anniversary of Thomas, which also includes a new Thomas and Friends Storytime podcast featuring many special guests, and, my favourite part, the release of the unbroadcast pilot episode on the official Thomas and Friends YouTube channel. Check out the auction for yourself, and the best of luck to you. Well, I do hope you enjoyed today's video. If so, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. I would like as ever to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your generous support. You are the red stripes to my green caterpillar. I would also like to thank PropStore and Mattel for partnering with me on today's video, and for giving me the opportunity to poke around their props while giggling like a loon. And I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.